ladies and gentlemen, we are here talking about the U.S. presidential elections coming right up here on TVP World. Now, Vice President Kamala Harris has secured enough votes from delegates to become the Democratic presidential nominee. With the Democratic National Convention approaching, Harris is set to formally accept the nomination and announce her running mate. This development comes after President Biden's decision to step aside and endorse her candidacy, reshaping the Democratic campaign landscape. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these significant developments and their implications is Tomasz Obremski from the Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So now it seems all but secure that Kamala Harris will be clinching the nomination unopposed. Do you think this suggests like a strong party unity or rather the lack of viable alternatives?
I would say that maybe even both, because on one hand, we have seen this, the rise of the momentum for Kamala Harris. The campaign for Democrats was not that successful in recent week, but since Joe Biden decided to step aside and endorse Kamala Harris, we see that this momentum has been regained by the Democratic Party. But anyway, the Vice President Kamala Harris, as Vice President, had pretty low support opinion polls, and it was expected that some challenger will seize the opportunity and try to maybe open the convention. But such a move will definitely will not create this momentum for the Democratic Party. Will create more conflicts inside. And will also fuel up the Republican Party campaign. So maybe because of this dynamics, because of this dilemmas, it was decided that it's best to consolidate around one candidate and focus the campaign against Donald Trump and make this Democratic convention in mid-August already successful, the big event, same as it was successful for Republican Party in July.
Right, like I mentioned, there are people who are arguing for opening up the convention for a sort of a vote. And some people even argue that this virtual roll calls kind of bypass voter engagement. Do you think Harris's nomination was a coordination rather than a democratic process?
First of all, this virtual convention was already scheduled before Joe Biden announced his decision to step aside. It's mainly for some bureaucracy reasons. The candidate cannot be on the ballot if it's not registered sufficiently time before. However, it can still be changed. So this kind of like gives her some kind of a victory, consolidates her power. But this virtual meeting was not taking place because there was a change of the candidate. It will take place anyway. And it just shows that Kamala Harris has pretty big support in the Democratic Party. This process has been smooth, and it shows that probably no challenger will try to open up the convention.
But going back to what we discussed, like organizations such as Black Lives Matter have been arguing that this kind of process circumvents the actually participation of democratic process. And of course, we talk a lot about democracy being on the ballot. And do you think that organizations like Black Lives Matter have legitimacy in questioning whether or not the democratic process is being properly observed in this nomination?
Here, I think, is the question of the democratic process as a whole in America, which is pretty complicated with primary votes, with delegates, etc. We can summon the example of Hillary Clinton that gathered more votes, more than 1 million votes more in 2016 than Donald Trump, but eventually, because of the specific of the U.S. democratic system, she lost the elections. Here, she was on the same ticket as Joe Biden. This ticket won the primaries, won enough amount of delegates. I think we could undermine such organizations could more easily undermine the democratic process in the Democratic Party if the convention will be open, if some new candidate will emerge from this convention. Here we will see big challenging of the legitimacy of such a candidate. But here we need to remember that Kamala Harris was on the ticket during the primaries. She's a not new candidate. She's a candidate as a front runner, but she's a new candidate as a front runner, but not as a. She already took part in these votes. So of course, this is the problem we Democratic Party has to deal with. But still, keeping the Kamala Harris on the ticket creates the least amount of damage for democratic legitimacy, in my opinion.
Right. And like you mentioned before, the Harris being on the ballot has reinvigorated the Democratic Party's voting base. And we are seeing like an improvement in polling numbers as opposed to, well, compared to the previous Biden being on the ballot. Do you think that Harris' background and previous political roles will shape her campaign strategy against Donald Trump?
This is very big question, because I remember I was even here commenting the debate, and I was asked about Trump campaign and Trump policy, and we've been saying that Trump policy, Trump approach to the foreign policy, to domestic policy in many regards remains enigma. But since then we have seen many articles, many papers written by his advisors, and now this policy of Trump and Vance starts to crystallize. In case of Harris, once again, we don't know yet what we're gonna get, and we still don't know who's gonna be her running mate. Of course, her prosecutor past is going to play a significant role, but Donald Trump will definitely use everything he can against her. Use the fact that she doesn't have that many success story in the politics, neither as senator nor as a vice president. Already as a prosecutor in California, she was very controversial also for even the Democratic Party, although also for the liberals. So probably Donald Trump will try to exacerbate that and demotivate Democratic Party. As we know, in the polarized country, that the motivation of your voters is most important. So this program for her campaign is still going to be developed in the next, I would say, week, because probably today, the latest tomorrow, she will pick up her running mate. Then they go together already to 7 swing states. This is going to be the moment defining for the campaign and putting the some slogans, some key programs on the agenda.
Right, like I mentioned, of course, we still yet to find out what Harris' campaign is going to be. It's only been about 2 weeks since Biden announced dropping out, and the platform of Kamala Harris is still relatively unknown. But if you were to give some speculation, especially coming from this part of the world, what sort of foreign policy do we want to see that could, well, be more beneficial for the U.S. relation with the EU, with Central Eastern Europe, or even in Poland?
Continuation, but also it's going to be very important how new president is going to deal with the conflict in Ukraine. Of course, Donald Trump is motivated to finish that conflict as soon as possible, either by negotiation, either by gearing up Ukraine to its teeth and being able to fight back Russians on the ground. Already we can see from Ukrainians that also Ukrainians want to see Russian delegates at the peace talks, second round of the peace talks they want to organize. So the question is how Kamala Harris will create something new, will create her own opinion. Of course, she does not want to confront openly, but she's always has been mentioning the importance and relevance of the allies of the United States. So as with Donald Trump, we could expect more bilateral approach towards countries, towards international organizations. Here there will be much more much bigger underline of this of multilateralism, of the structural alliances, of alliances with the EU as a whole, which for Poland is good, but as we could expect, for example, in the case of Trump would like to sort of divide and rule in Europe, try to find some allies and enemies for short-term benefits. Definitely, such approach can bring positive results in the short term, but in the long term, it might be less sustainable. and Kamala Harris' approach here seems more safer and more predictable. But still, a lot of depends on her running mate pickup. If it's going to be Josh Shapiro, definitely also more attention is going to be brought to the Middle East. Of course, the main challenge for the United States remains China. So here, I'm just afraid that this Central and Eastern European thing could become a third tier issue.
Right. So there is a lot of factor going into this. And like you mentioned, we do have to keep our eyes peeled as she announces her running mate and her platform going forward. Last but not least, there's a little bit of discussion on what platform the presidential debate should be held on. And somehow it's become a point of contention. So in your opinion, what platform do you think the presidents should be debating on? And why is it TVP World?
Well, it's unbiased. It's conducted in English. It's on the rise, and does not have any political agenda towards the United States, I believe. But I guess you were talking about Fox News. I think Donald Trump still is more likely to win these elections after all that happened in recent weeks, from the debate, from assassination attempt. Kamala Harris is still an underdog, both politically and in this campaign. So she is the one that has to regain the momentum, prove herself to the Republican voters. So she needs to agree to hold the debate in the Fox News on the 4th or 5th of September, I believe. And because also she wants to demotivate certain Republicans. She's also already saying this slogan, Republicans for Harris, Republicans that don't want to vote for Trump. She wants to convince them to vote for herself. So maybe Fox News is the right station for her to go. She will not motivate already motivated from CNN, NBC, and from electoral based. So if not TVP World, then Fox News for her is absolutely understandable.
Thank you so much, brilliant, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomasz Obremski from the Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Thanks for joining us on TVP World.
Thanks for having me.
And with that, we conclude this edition of our interview. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.